Welcome to California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerantz. We are joined today by Alex Padilla. He is a member of the California State Senate. He is a nominee for Secretary of State in our state of California. Congratulations, sir. Came in first in the June primary, in the jungle primary. How'd it work? How were you able to come in first?
Well, thanks, Brad. Good to be back on this show.
Sure.
And I'll tell you, it was an experience. I mean, this top two vote-getter system is still relatively new for California. We've been through one cycle of congressional candidates, legislative candidates. This is the first time that all the constitutional offices are run under the top two vote-getter system. And a lot of people ask me along the way, how does it feel if you have to campaign to not just Democrats? And I said, you know what, I get to campaign to not just Democrats in the primary. I started in local government, 7.5 years on the city council.
I remember.
In Los Angeles before I ran for the legislature.
Nonpartisan office.
Nonpartisan office, so I'm used to working with everybody. I'm a proud Democrat. I'll stand by my core beliefs and my core issues. But to get things done, you got to work with everybody. That's what I've done legislatively, and I had a chance to do that politically again, and we earned our way into the top vote-getter spot.
And I want to ask you about what's going on right now in the controller's race. If you had been Secretary of State now, you would be looking over a recount, because as we know, Ashley Swearingen came in first, mayor of Fresno. The second place spot, battle between Betty Yee and John Perez. When all the votes were counted, Ms. Yee came out on top by 1/100th of a percent.
481 votes to be exact. So when you think about the multi-million number of votes cast statewide, that is the razor thinnest of margins. So one of the things that we're going to try to do, if not this year, certainly next year in California, is to establish an automatic recount provision. Most other states in the nation, whether it's a 0.1% difference, a 0.5%, 0.100%,
0.100,
when a race is that close, all votes ought to be recounted just to ensure the accuracy and the integrity of the result.
What's interesting to me is at this stage, as we speak today, Mr. Perez has chosen to call for recounts of certain counties and certain precincts. I mean, to me, I'm not asking for a legal opinion, but it sounds kind of like, shades of Bush v. Gore, where one vote's more important than the other because you're picking which votes to recount.
Right, and when it comes to people's perception of government and politics, or people's faith and confidence in government and politics, that doesn't help. To be honest, it is consistent with the law and the rules. It's allowed today, but is it the best way to do it? I don't think so. Again, in the future, I think any race that's this close ought to trigger an automatic recount of all votes cast, all counties, not just get a chance to cherry pick, well, this county, that county, because I did better, and then put the other candidate in the position of, well, if I fall behind during the recount, now I got to step up and start paying for this recount to try to regain the lead.
For that law to pass, would it be a bill through the legislature? Would we need to go to the voters? Do you have a sense? I don't know the answer.
No, that can be done via the legislature, and obviously a signature by the governor.
2/3 vote or 50% plus 1?
50% plus 1.
So are there discussions already? I mean, you're still in the legislature right now to move this forward, because this is a shock to the system like we've never seen.
Yes, and so we are technically in our summer recess of the legislature, but I'm already getting emails from colleagues both in the Senate and the Assembly saying, is there a way to get this bill introduced before the end of this year's session?
But it couldn't impact this recount right now.
It wouldn't impact this recount. This recount has to be operated under current law, and probably not even November. So we're looking at putting a new law that would take effect January 1st, 2015 going forward.
So as you've traveled around the state before we break, how's it going for you?
I feel great. Again, not just the result of the June primary, but I couldn't be happier with this pledge that I made when I first announced my campaign. I promised to visit all 58 counties in California for a couple of reasons.
Are you there? Have you done it yet?
39. Today will be 40.
Okay, right.
With 18 more to go.
Okay, when we come back, we'll continue our conversation with Alex Padilla. For our viewers on HLN, thanks for joining us. For our other viewers, we'll be right back. So, sir, I want to speak with you about the California State Senate, an august body that has really suffered over the last several months. We've had 3 members of the California State Senate under indictment. One has been convicted. Members that many have loved and revered, and yet they've fallen under a cloud of suspicion. How has that been for you as a member of a body of just 40? I mean, it's a club.
Yeah, it's frankly, a little disappointing and extremely frustrating. I can tell you, to be in elected office is the last thing I thought I'd be doing when I was growing up.
I know, Mr. MIT.
Well, no, not only that, but when it came to politics, I was just as cynical as anybody, right? It's greed, it's corruption, this and that. And it wasn't until I got involved in my first campaign and started meeting people that were on staff in city halls and state capitol that I realized most people are in it for the right reasons.
Right.
We want to help, and both Democrats and Republicans, we want to improve public safety, we want to improve education, we want to improve the economy. We all know what we want to do. But how we go about our job is critically important. And when we have these distractions, at a minimum, that we've had this year, like you said, not just one, not two, but 3 members of the State Senate of California, that takes away from our ability to do the budget work that we need to do, to reform education more like we need to do.
At the same time, the Senate has decided to take up ethics reform. A lot of it's focused on fundraising. And I want to ask about fundraising, and if I may use the Leland Yee case as an example. Senator Yee was indicted, and if you read the information in the affidavit, it appears he wasn't seeking funds for personal gain. He was looking to fundraise. And so it speaks to the pressures of fundraising. And I'm not casting aspersions, I'm not making statements about Mr. Yee, but it takes a lot of money to run for office. And what the Senate is doing right now is looking at putting limits on when money can be raised. Begs the question, if you're limiting when money can be raised, doesn't it put more pressures on fundraising, make it harder to fundraise, and then create a more likelihood of shenanigans? Right,
and I've authored a bill to that effect myself this year. And in doing the homework of crafting a fundraising blackout period, as we refer to it, we know that there's a dozen other states in the nation that currently have a fundraising blackout period of some sort in place already. There's an additional 3 states, Florida, forgetting the other 2 at the moment, but they had fundraising blackout periods that were challenged in court and overturned because they were too aggressive. So when I first introduced my bill that said, look, for the last 100 days of session, which would encompass the budget period and the end of session when the most important votes of the year are cast, no fundraising. There's plenty enough time in the rest of the year to raise the money for your campaign,
is there, though?
re-election. Look, I've been at this for 15 years, again, at the city council level and at the state level. From experience, yes, I think there's plenty enough time to garner the resources necessary to run a viable campaign.
But that
most elected officials will tell you what I tell you. Fundraising has nothing to do with how I cast my votes. But we can say that till we're blue in the face. If the public doesn't believe it, then we have a problem with democracy. And I do believe the time has come for some sort of blackout period.
But would the blackout period apply to a challenger who's not in the body?
So there's 2 efforts afoot. My legislation that would put the requirement of a blackout period in state law. And so the consequences would be a violation of state law and the repercussions of that. The way I've drafted my bill initially didn't. It only applied to legislators. The current form does apply to all candidates from a level playing field concern. That seems to be stuck in the assembly now. But so the other track that we followed is the Senate, the state Senate alone, as a House rule, has adopted this blackout period for the end of session. Doesn't apply to the assembly. And a violation, well, it's up to the Senate leadership to determine what the consequences would be if somebody doesn't abide by the rule.
What about the notion of raising money for 2 different offices? We often hear about people having different office holder accounts. I may run for lieutenant governor, I may run for Congress.
Again, I think that's a loophole in the law currently. The members that we've heard about that have done that are allowed to by law today. So another part of my bill package, if I can't appear on the ballot before the voters for more than 1 office at a time, I shouldn't be able to raise money for more than 1 office at a time. And we're all allowed to change our minds. Maybe I wanted to run for this and I decided to run for that. There's provisions in place to allow you to transfer the money or zero out 1 account before you start the second one. But we have to be more straightforward and honest with the voters.
His name is Alex Padilla. He is a member of the California State Senate, also a nominee for Secretary of State of California. That election will be held in November 2014. My name is Brad Pomerantz. It's California Edition.